Autumn has arrived. Between the beauty of the trees and the crisp air, it feels like the perfect day for a bookish adventure. I thought it would be fun to take you along with me on a cozy fall tour of some little free libraries. And amongst all the book treasure hunting, we can soak up the fall atmosphere and maybe stop for some seasonal treats and drinks along the way. Think crunchy leaves and chocolate pumpkin sweets and unexpected book finds that I'll share in a haul at the end. So grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's head on out on an autumn adventure for readers. This first little free library had a fantastic mix of kids' picture books with adult books. I did find this unique cover of The Man in the High Castle. This is not something I've read, and I also have not watched the TV show. I found a gorgeous cover of Ella Enchanted, but it looked like it'd seen better days, so I didn't grab it. At the Scent of Water by Linda Nichols is the third book in a Christian inspirational book series. I have not read this author, but I was intrigued by the cover. Next, I loved the decorations at this house with the wood mushroom. I love when people have so much personality in their front yard decor in the city. So in this little free library, I found a couple interesting books. This was a craft book, which I think is interesting to have in a little free library. It's a way to get somebody interested in a new hobby. I also love finding vintage paperbacks. I just think they're lovely. And then I also am so nostalgic when I find the Babysitter's Club or even Sweet Valley High. So I did not read the Sweet Valley University part of the series. I only read these Sweet Valley Twins and then a couple of the Sweet Valley High. But somebody got rid of their whole collection. We actually already have a pretty good collection at our house from what I had when I was younger, but I was sad to see somebody gave up their collection. And then I found this stunning mass paperback version of Carrie by Stephen King. Not a Stephen King I've read, but I was definitely tempted by that cover. Next, I stopped in my favorite bakery to look and see what treats they had. I love all of the fall cookies and tarts and pastries and love the creativity that bakers have. I did stop in the tea shop to get a fall tea. Something that I love to do when I'm out is just to kind of help immerse myself in the experience is to get some sort of fall treat. The next little free library obviously was owned by a dog lover. They had a dog wallpaper in the back and then treats for anyone who's walking their dogs and may want to use them. And then this had a lot of middle grade books. I love Sarah Plainenthal, but it also had The Lovely War by Julie Berry. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic historical fiction connecting Greek mythology and World War II. And then we had some American Girl books. These are the newer versions, but still fantastic. I love to see those out and about and available. The next little free library, it was pretty full. We've got Anne Rice over there on the side, and we also have MC Beaton, who I mentioned in my last video. I loved this cover. We also have Kristen Hanna. This was a beautiful winter cover as well. And then we just had some more modern fiction like The Majesties. These all had very modern, unique covers. I love seeing hardcovers with dust jackets in little free libraries. And then we also had some Debbie Macomber. I love her Christmas covers. I mean, They're just Hallmark movies in a book, right? So the unique thing about this little free library is that it's actually attached to a little free library building. It is a structure that is full of books that are mostly free and available. They do have a small resource section and like a museum area where you can't take those books, but otherwise most of the books that you are seeing here are free for the taking. And because they have so many, they actually encouraged me for any that I got to not leave any as a trade. They had these Anne McCaffrey, I love her Dragon Riders of Pern book series, the original. She did write a lot. To me, that's like the original Dragon Rider series. Looking back at these, there are so many that I probably should have grabbed. But at the time, I was feeling like I already had chosen a lot. I was also feeling like some of those would have been duplicates. But again, as I look at them, I think, ooh, I probably should have gotten more in this classics section. I also found these Agatha Christie books. There were so many here. And I know I mentioned my mass paperback love so often. I also mentioned that I love to see Agatha Christie's where the cover doesn't necessarily give away the twist or the surprise. So these were all beautiful covers. I also found a Joyce Carol Oates, Black Dahlia and White Rose. This was actually published in 2012, and I think it's her short story collections. I've not read any Joyce Carol Oates, but I'm not the biggest short story fan. I also saw this beautiful How High the Moon cover, and this is actually set in 1944, and I think it is touching on the civil rights movement. And the cover reminded me so much of Stella by Starlight, and I think the plot is similar, although I think Stella and Starlight is set a little bit earlier. I also found this Murder, She Wrote hardcover. Again, I also mentioned Murder, She Wrote in one of my more recent videos and mentioned that there are book series written after them. And I, again, love to see that hardcover. I also found a pretty decent biography and autobiography section. That Mark Twain autobiography was huge. It was about 1,000 pages, and it was only one part of it. And I cannot imagine the amount of time that Samuel Clemens took to write this autobiography. I have a haul for you. So, the first two books that I want to share are for homeschool. So first, I have The Disappearing Spoon and Other True Tales of Madness, Love, and the History of the World from the Periodic Table of Elements by Sam Keen. This is a book that we have to use for our Science in the Kitchen, Chemistry in the Kitchen unit that we are combining with doing chemistry experiments. So I'm just really pleased to not have had to buy this book new, but instead found it for free. Next, I have The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. I have another copy of this. It is a mass paperback copy. It's the copy that I read, but the binding is a little bit tight and the print is small and it's just not as user-friendly. And so since my kids are going to be reading this as part of their curriculum starting, I think, next year, I just was happy to find kind of a floppier, larger print version that's easier to read, that can be underlined and highlighted. In this, we follow Screwtape. He is a minion of Satan, and his job is to tempt humans. And so we get these letters between Satan and Screwtape as he's getting guidance on how best to entrap humans through temptation and just kind of feeding into how to kind of lead someone down a very evil path. Next, I grabbed two Agatha Christie paperbacks. In A Dumb Witness, Emily Arundel trips and falls over a rubber ball that's been left on the stairs of her dogs. And at first she thinks it's an accident, but as time passes, she thinks that maybe this was an attempted murder by one of her relatives. So in April, she writes a letter to Hercule Poirot. Strangely, he doesn't get it until the end of June. And by that point, Emily is dead. So this is a Hercule Poirot that I do not currently have have a copy of, nor have I read. So I was happy to grab that paperback. And then I grabbed this beautiful Endless Night. I love this cover so much. I think it's so perfect for fall. And in this we have Michael. Michael travels to Gypsy Acres. He meets an heiress and he falls in love, or so he thinks. And he has ignored a prophecy or a statement from an older lady who lets him know that there is a curse at Gypsy Acres. And Michael doesn't necessarily believe her or listen to her, but he starts to realize that there are fatal accidents that are happening at Gypsy Acres, and so the curse might actually be real. Next, I have a Courtney Walsh, A Change of Heart. So I got this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think Courtney Walsh is a Christian no-spice romance writer. And I also thought the cover looked so perfectly autumnal that I couldn't help but grab it. I have not read any Courtney Walsh, but I think I have another one at home that I got in another little free library. So we have Evelyn. Evelyn's husband turns out to be a cad. He's like an embezzler. He doesn't feel sorry. I think he might also be accused of infidelity. So lots going on there. Evelyn, I think, divorces him. She ends up encircled by a group of women who decides that they're not going to let Evelyn wallow. So Evelyn is staying in the guest house of Trevor. And I think this is where sparks fly. So you have like matchmaking women, as well as a kind of grumpy landlord, and then very hurt female protagonist. So we will see. Again, I do love the cover. So I just quickly checked. It doesn't look like it starts in autumn or specifically set in autumn, but I hopefully will get to this sometime soon. My autumn TBR is pretty long. Next, I managed to find T.E. Kinsey's In the Market for Murder, which is the second Lady Hardcastle murder. So these are not easy to find. So when I discovered it, I was like, oh my gracious, I'm definitely grabbing this. So I love that Lady Hardcastle is an older female main character. She is also, I think, a spinster, and she has this like right-hand woman who helps her with solving mysteries. The last mystery was wonderfully rich and had a lot of red herrings. We got to really know Lady Hardcastle. She obviously does have more secrets, though, that need to be uncovered. I find it fascinating that T.E. Kinsey himself is a male, but he's writing this really strong female character. So she's got this like house or property that's out in the country. And so when she is staying there, she seems to come across these murders. So I'm happy to have the second book. I definitely will be getting into this hopefully next spring. But again, this was a fantastic find. Next, I found Gil Hornby's Miss Austen. I also want to read Godmersham Park by her. That actually is in my cart as we speak on Pango for me to use my Pango credits to get. I want that blue cover. It might be the UK edition. It's so beautiful. But in Miss Austen, I think, follow Jane's sister Cassandra. Cassandra, 23 years after Jane's death, travels to this country home and discovers letters that Jane has written and hidden about Jane's past. And Cassandra realizes that Jane was desperate to not have this be true, but Cassandra wants to really understand what is happening. And so it's a historical fiction, probably more leaning on the fiction side, I would think. But again, I've been wanting to read Gil Hornby's books, and to find this for free is just icing on the cake. I found another Jane Austen book, and this one is not so leaning heavily on fiction and instead is a biography of Jane Austen herself. So this is Jane Austen, A Life by Carol Shields. I thought the cover was lovely. I would love to pair the two of these together to kind of see how much of Jane's life is reflected in this Miss Austen novel. So I don't know if I will save them for Jane Austen July or if I will pick them up at a different time of year. So we'll see. But I am planning to read the two of these in tandem. Another biography that I found is this George Eliot, A Life by Rosemary Ashton. If I didn't already feel like I'm drowning in my TBR possibilities for this autumn. This would be perfect for nonfiction November. There's actually photos in the center of it. It is very thick, but I would love to learn more about George Eliot and her life and kind of how her books came to be. And so this, again, was fantastic find. I was very excited about it. It's not one that I will be getting to in the short term, but definitely will hold on to this and maybe even just chip away at it a little bit each month in order to get through this within the next year or so. So next I found May Sinclair's Mary Olivier, A Life. This, I believe, is a Victorian novel. It is one that I could read for Victober this year because I think May Sinclair would count as sort of an underrated or not as well-known female writer in the Victorian era. So it says, this important, too long neglected novel is about the plight of a gifted young woman growing up in a Victorian household. Born in 1865, Mary Olivier is the youngest of 4 children. She wants to be educated, but I think she is not permitted, and she also has a very overbearing mother figure. And I also think that this tackles the concept of a woman who wants her own life, who wants a lover, who wants more to life, but ends up having to possibly consider sacrificing her freedom in order to do her duty. So again, I grabbed this thinking that maybe for a Victober option, maybe next year, but either way, I'm happy to have another Victorian novel put on my list. Next, I have Pam Jenoff's An Orphan Tale. So I have looked at a couple Pam Jenoff books and considered them for reading. She's a historical fiction author, but have not yet picked any of hers up. And when I saw the cover, I immediately thought this would be a great book to put on my winter TBR. So hopefully sharing what the flap says doesn't give away too much, but we have Noah. She ends up pregnant by a Nazi soldier, but I think she's forced to give up her child. And this tears her apart so that one night when she comes across a train car with Jewish children in it, heading to a concentration camp, she takes one of those Jewish children off the car and flees. And she ends up joining a traveling German circus during World War II. She befriends Astrid, and I think the two women, I don't know if they start as rivals and then develop a friendship, but I have a feeling they both have secrets, and I would like to read a Pam Jenoff historical fiction. And like I said, with this cover, I figured this would be a good one to put on my list so that maybe I will reach for it when we have snow on the ground. My last find that I have to share with you is Mrs. Polifax on Safari by Dorothy Gilman. So I think this is the 5th Miss Polifax. We have the Unexpected Miss Polifax. We have the Amazing Mrs. Polifax. And I've read those first 2 in the series. And then we also have the Elusive Mrs. Polifax, A Poem for Mrs. Polifax, and then we have On Safari. So I am not there yet. I have read 2 of the books in that series. So I am definitely wanting to continue the series. And I do come across Mrs. Polifax books in my travels. So I will just continue to be on the lookout for them. And at some point I will hopefully have an eclectic collection of all the different versions that got printed. There were like older hardcovers and then a little bit more modern hardcovers. Then they moved completely into paperbacks, which I think is what you see mostly. So again, I was happy to find a hardcover with a dust jacket that was in pretty decent condition for free. So I will just put this on my shelf, and once I get to number 5, then I will have this ready to go and can just grab it on a whim. So there you go. There are the books that I grabbed on this little free library trip. So feel free to let me know what I should have gotten, what you saw me kind of pass up that was a mistake, which every time I edit these videos, I always think, oh, I should have grabbed it. It was free. What? It's just a trade. Why didn't I just get it? But also let me know if what I did find, what you would kind of move to the top of your TBR, something that you have read and loved, or that you also want to read. So as always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.